We are back for another live stream video. I'm just ensuring that we are in fact live and good to go. All right, we can get started here. So first, I just want to say hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Hector Acuna. As you can probably tell by my voice, I'm a little bit sick today. And I debated on pushing today's live stream to a different day in the week, and just figured I don't have that many paintings left to talk about in the 2023 portfolio, and I just, I'm very sorry that this video is going to have this weird sort of sick voice throughout the live stream. I'm trying my best to really, stay hydrated and take the proper medication. So hopefully it's not too big of a problem today. In terms of understanding the commentary for the paintings that we're talking about. So the stream today is going to start exactly where we left off in the last stream, where I had talked about this painting that I created in the 3rd Ward district in Milwaukee. This was painted, I want to say, in like May or June of 2023. So it's a little bit out of order, to be honest here. And because of that, things aren't going to line up chronologically in the presentation today. If you're just joining in, you'll probably gather within the first couple seconds that I'm a little bit sick today. So again, I apologize about my voice being a little bit kind of nasally sounding today. So anyway, we're going to just sort of push through, finish off the portfolio, and then hopefully maybe by the end of this week I can do another live stream, be back to normal. I was a little bit sick over the weekend with a very small kind of head cold, and I thought I was going to be over it by Monday when I created the live stream link and everything. And then this morning I woke up with a really, really sore throat and really stuffy nose. So I've been taking some Dayquil already and drinking a lot of tea. And like I said, when I first started the stream, I was debating if I should cancel today's live stream and push it to a different day in the week. But I figure there's only a few paintings left to talk about, and I can just sort of push through and get these done. So let's go ahead and get started. Excuse me. This is going to be the problem today, is that I'm going to have to cough periodically throughout the discussion. But my tea with honey should be helpful with that. All right, so the majority of the paintings that I'm talking about in today's live stream are paintings that were created in Texas in October of 2023. In the last live stream, I talked about the Bath County paintings. Those were made in September of 2023, so this was my last event, this one in Texas, and it's a really well-known event. It's called Plein Air Texas, and it's hosted by a organization of artists and art supporters in San Angelo, Texas, which, if you're not familiar with that city, it's on the western side of the state, kind of out in the high desert area. There's a lot of cattle country on that side of the state, and there's farms that have thousands and thousands of acreage where they raise cattle and other livestock. So what was really exciting about this event is that there's a collaboration between some of the local farms and ranches and the group that hosts the event. So you end up being hosted by some of these ranchers, and it's about a 10-day event from start to finish. And that first weekend that you get to Texas, you're placed with a ranch anywhere from 30 minutes to, I think, like 3 hours outside of San Angelo, which, when you look at the size of Texas, that's really still kind of a small area of Texas because it's such a large state. I was placed on a ranch with three other artists in Brady, Texas. So I was paired with Charlie Hunter, I was paired with Alex Eisenhopf, and Stuart White. So the four of us shared the sort of guest house area of a ranch out in Brady. And some of the first paintings in the slideshow today are from that ranch in Brady, Texas. So this was one of, maybe this was like the second or third painting that I made during the week, during those 2 or 3 days that I was in Brady. And we're looking at the side of a garage, sort of shop garage structure. And what I liked about the view is that there was this like station wagon kind of vehicle parked on the other side of the garage that you could see through these doorways. And I thought it was an interesting way of cropping out the subject of the car. I liked the contrast in the sky to the shadow inside of the garage. And that really was the emphasis and focal point of the painting. I'm going to pause for just a second so I can blow my nose. I'm going to turn off my mic so you don't have to listen to it. All right, try not to do that too often today. Again, I'm really sorry that I'm sick today. I'm wondering if some of you would have been like, no problems. You could have just pushed it to a different day. But like I've been saying, there's really not that many paintings to talk about today. And the biggest bummer for me is that the recordings of the live streams are going to stay linked and published on my YouTube channel. So that's the only kind of problem with talking today and dealing with being sick and my voice, is that this is going to permanently be the commentary to accompany this part of my portfolio. So, if you're watching this video, way after the live stream, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully it's bearable throughout the whole presentation here. Just to give you a sense of scale, I think this was 16 inches wide by 9 inches tall. And it's an oil painting on a handmade oil primed canvas panel that I built. When I went to Texas, I flew there, rented a car, and I had to pre-ship all of my panels and frames and like all of my substrates in 2 really large boxes. And I remember shipping them there was like $370 or so, somewhere around there, just to ship the boxes one way to Texas. So I learned that that's really not the best way to get your materials out to an event if you're flying there. So don't follow me and try that if you're going to be shipping materials. I would highly recommend finding a way to get frames once you're there, or use frames that are a lot thinner and lighter, like float frames, which I did not do. I built pretty wide, solid wood frames that were very heavy. And my panels, man, I'm really sorry about being sick today. If in the next couple minutes, if I'm still really kind of congested, I might decide to just sort of stop and then retry this later this week, because it's not fun to listen to somebody give a presentation when they're this sick. So, but we'll see. I'll see if I can keep going for a couple more minutes. The problem with being sick like this is that it sort of like, interrupts your thought process, but also just like being able to talk fluidly, because my throat is so dry today. Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks, Jane, for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. It's fun to be back live streaming. I just wish I wasn't so sick today. Like I was saying, I thought I'd be over it by Monday, and it just seems to have gotten worse today. So it's a little awkward when you've already, kind of scheduled a stream. You kind of want to stick to your schedule. So anyway, this painting was a one-session painting. I remember the daughter of the family, who I think helps out with the ranch and really is in charge of a lot of components to their business as farmers. She's the one who owns this car, and she purchased the painting during the reception, during the show at Plein Air, Texas, which was really cool. This was one of the first paintings I made. This is a little 5 by 7 inch linen panel that I made by hand and oil primed. This was one of the first times I had made a painting on a linen panel. So it was kind of exciting to do some plein air work on linen for the first time. And I obviously did this little batch of cacti, prickly pear kind of cactus or cacti here. This was really close to our bunkhouse, sort of guest house where we were staying. And it was a pretty fun painting. I kind of, I wish I would have maybe spent a little bit more time on this one, but it was fun to think of the sort of plainer construction of the cactus, and each piece of it had this very sort of elongated and flat shape and surface that was positioned at different places in terms of perspective. So because of that, it was a really great exercise in studying the way that the light and the value shifts were happening in its anatomy, sort of. So it was really fun to do. This one also had sold. I think those two were the only paintings that I sold in Plein Air, Texas. I didn't really sell a lot of paintings, which was, it's always a little bit disappointing when that happens, especially if it's an event that you flew out to and it was a really big investment. But I had a really great time. I'm really glad that I got to go and that I was juried in. And as we'll talk about in another painting, it worked out that one of my other paintings that I made was given an award. So financially, that really helped cover my expenses. But anyway, this is another Brady painting. This was the last painting that I made before I had to go into San Angelo. So the first couple days of the event, they have you on those ranches, and then for the next 6 days after that, you're invited back, or you're invited to San Angelo for the rest of the week and the event. And there, you're placed onto another ranch or another, volunteer host's property. And so this was right before I was heading back to San Angelo. This was kind of on my way off of their property. I saw this view and I really liked the succession of farm equipment and different shapes and colors. So, it's sort of this open lot that they had kind of by where that horizontal garage car painting was painted. So just off of that sort of garage, there's this big open gravel parking lot that they have, and there's sort of parked equipment there. So this is where I painted that. And it was really, like I said, it was a lot of fun to be able to paint all of these different sort of abstract shapes. As you look really closely, you can really see how loose a lot of this painting actually is, especially where, small details of the tractor or, the machinery kind of fragments into these smaller shapes and lines. That was a lot of fun to try to convey in this painting. The other thing that was kind of exciting about painting this scene, I remember, was dealing with this wide range of somewhat neutral colors. The foreground, this beige tan, it's really not that colorful or chromatic. And that was fun to kind of think about in terms of, contrast and variety or intensity of my mixtures on my palette. And this area in the background was a lot of fun to convey as well, because behind all of this equipment, eventually there was this little fence that they had installed. And behind the fence were just rolling fields of farmland. And it's a little hard to distinguish that, but above that distant tree line, there were these slight little, almost like mountain peaks off in the horizon that were really fun to try to match the color, temperature in that part of the painting. Compositionally, this was probably one of my favorite paintings that I made in Texas, just because it's so kind of winding throughout the composition. I like that the eye has a lot of areas to move around. I like this sort of dispersion of shapes and those proportions of shape in this painting. And just the playfulness between positive and negative space. There's a lot of these negative cavities between trailers or in the tractor. So it's fun to think about shape as being a solid physical form and shape being this open negative space. So that was really fun to think about when making this painting. Before I forget, I did want to just mention, so if you've been part of my audience for these videos or live streams, you'll notice I'm in a different environment today. I'm downstairs at our house in my studio. I had moved my computer setup upstairs for a few months while I was working on the majority of my zine and doing other just sort of computer admin work. And the basement gets really cold in the wintertime here in Wisconsin, so Megan was really nice and invited me to bring this upstairs for a few months, and we hosted Easter a few weeks ago, so I had to move everything back downstairs, and now I'm just going to be back here in the studio for the summer and the fall. And then I also wanted to mention that today is Monday, April 8th of 2024, and it's the day of the solar eclipse, which is pretty cool. So if you're watching this, I hope you get to experience the eclipse in some form or fashion, and I hope that's exciting for you. I don't have any solar sunglasses, so I don't know if I'll actually go outside and stare up in the sky. I might just sort of look out the window and watch, the light sort of change. We'll see. Earlier I was thinking it would be kind of fun to do a plein air painting during the eclipse, but I don't know. With not feeling well, that might not happen today. Okay, this is another Brady painting, and this is a 8-inch by 9-inch canvas that I made. This is a just sort of oil-primed traditional cotton canvas wrapped panel. And this also was one of the first. I think this might have been the first painting I made in Texas, actually. I think the Cactus one was the second one, technically. And this was of a truck, driver and passenger seat of this hunting truck that they had on their property that's parked at that guest house, that bunkhouse where we were staying. So I just walked out the door, looked around sort of the perimeter of the building, and I saw these trucks and was like, wow, these are pretty interesting trucks, and there's some really cool colors and shapes here. I bet I can find a fun painting to try to do incorporating the trucks in some way. So the painting is called Shotgun, and it's sort of a play on two meanings of the word, because they are hunting trucks and we're looking at the passenger seat. And it's cool because through the window on the driver's side, you can see another one of those trucks. But what I liked about that view was because these windshields and these windows are kind of old and they're sort of frosted, it filters the light of whatever you're looking through, and it shifts like the values and the chroma and the intensity and all that stuff. So I liked that truck behind the one that we're looking at in the foreground is a lot brighter or high key, and a lot more muted. So that was really fun to sort of convey in this painting as well. And then this one also had this kind of turquoisey bluish green, filtered glass up at the top of the windshield. That was really fun to try to match as well, because you could still see through it. So it was kind of filtering or manipulating whatever you would see through the glass, like whatever this wall divider line was, that reddish orange shifted into a darker bluish green under that sort of high tint of that turquoise at the top of the windshield there. But this was a pretty fun painting to make. It was very graphic. I used a lot of flat brushes. As we can see, there's a lot of sharp edges and lines. A lot of the shapes are very clean. so it has a very graphic quality about it. I also wasn't really using a lot of paint. It's a fairly thin painting, I would say, compared to some of my other plein air paintings. But yeah, this one is 8 by 9 inches. And a lot of these ones I'm talking about today are still available. So if you're interested, if you're watching this video and you'd like to inquire about one of these paintings, please let me know. I brought a couple of these 9 by 9 by 16 inch canvases with me. And if you had watched my last live stream where I talked about the Virginia paintings, then you heard me talk a little bit about the 16 by 9 ratio and the inspiration behind that. And basically it was sort of thinking about filmmaking and cinematography and that sort of traditional widescreen format. I wanted to take that out into the field and kind of think about my paintings in more of a storytelling kind of cinematic sort of way of thinking and framing the subject. So this was one of those 16 by 9 canvases that I brought with me to Texas. So now we're looking at paintings that were made in San Angelo as opposed to Brady, Texas. So we're an hour and a half west of Brady is San Angelo. So, and it might even be, I want to say it's southwest of Brady, but now I can't remember. And this is looking at the Cactus Hotel. So this little shape here is a very famous hotel in San Angelo called the Cactus Hotel. And I don't know if it's actually operating still. It might only be open on the first and second floor kind of a thing. But it's this really iconic kind of landmark in the downtown area. And it was the subject of a couple paintings that I created during my time in San Angelo. And unlike some of the other events I've done in 2022 and 2023, I kind of went into Texas like I brought a lot of canvases. I think I brought like 12 or 13 different framed panels, maybe 11 that were framed, and then I had 2 little 5x7s that I painted that were not framed, that I just bought frames while I was there from JFM Frames. But that's kind of unusual for me lately. I feel like I've been gravitating more and more towards just sticking to like 6 to 8 paintings per event, especially if I have a week. The tricky thing about this event was that they put you on that ranch the first weekend, and I like to go back and keep painting the same spot over and over and over on my paintings to really build up the history and to really connect with the space. But because I knew that I was going to be spending 3 days, an hour and a half away from San Angelo, I didn't want to have to drive 3 hours there and back to finish paintings. So I was like, well, I'll just bring a lot of paintings, and then that way I can do a bunch in, wherever I'm staying, wherever I'll be staying the first weekend, and then I could do a bunch in San Angelo. And so I brought 11 framed paintings. 2 of them were the 16 by 9s. I had 2 of the 8 by 9s. I think I had like a 9.5 by 11, maybe 2 of those. But we'll see once I get through all the paintings today. And then looking back, I kind of wish I would have maybe done like 7 or 8, framed canvases instead. But I don't know. It's hard also for me when I'm going somewhere for the first time. I don't really know what the event is like. I had heard from a lot of different artists, not a lot, but a couple artists that had been to Texas before, that they had sold really well. Like it was historically like a pretty well attended show, and there's a lot of sales, and it kind of put this, expectation in the back of my head, like, what if I don't bring enough canvases, and what if I sell a bunch of the paintings and I don't have any canvases left? Like there was that fear of running out of canvases, And so I went with the opposite. I just brought a ton of stuff. I painted on everything, and I have a bunch of these paintings still here today. But I like the work still. Sometimes, like I've talked about in other live streams, like if I do too many paintings at an event, I don't really like the paintings as much because I just rushed through them or didn't get enough time with them. And with these ones, I still liked how a lot of them turned out, which was, I was uncertain how that would play out. But anyway, what I liked about this painting was the big sweeping foreground of the wall on the left side that really pulls the eye up and over to the hotel. Here, I really like the cut in the sky to the building here. It's a really sharp contrast. And then this more atmospheric sort of tree line foliage shape on the right was really satisfying to offset the sharpness of this shape here. The thing I really was trying to capture, I remember, in this painting, and this actually was a 2-session painting. This was not a 1-session painting. One of the things I really tried to capture in this painting was the sense of warmth in the light that was casting across this yard. It's kind of like someone's backyard. And this vantage point was kind of cool because you could see the downtown area from pretty far away. And for locals in the San Angelo area, they would definitely be able to recognize that this was the Cactus Hotel, because it's one of the few buildings that's that tall and that wide, and that has this sort of orange roof at the top. So it's a very unique building. But like I said, this painting is also pretty abstract in terms of its shapes, kind of like the last one, the shotgun painting. Actually, the last couple paintings I showed. All right, and now we have kind of a random addition to the portfolio here. This was a painting that I made actually in September when I taught a workshop in Stevens Point. So when I was putting my portfolio together the last few months, I would upload things kind of in batches, and I would remember, oh, I have to go and upload this painting. So this is a painting that kind of got placed randomly in the order of the portfolio, and I need to go in and rearrange this one. But this is a 12 by 12 inch painting on a primed masonite panel. That was my demo painting for a workshop up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, back in, I think it was in September of 2023. And this was kind of a 2-day session painting. It was probably only like a 6-hour painting, or maybe a 5-hour painting. Maybe even less than that, because I spent most of my time during those 2 days at the Riverfront Arts Center with about 10 to 15 people across both days that came and painted with me. And they painted the majority of the time, and I sort of was giving feedback or just, talking with them. So I didn't really paint very much. But this is what I was able to finish in the initial 3 hours across both days. Maybe even 2 hours across both days. But it's a fun little painting of a couple of tree trunk kind of bases off of the Wisconsin River here. And then there's this little pond kind of inlet area where the water sits with a lot of lily pads. And I loved the big reflection of the shape of the tree on the water, and this strong cast shadow on the bank of the pond was really satisfying to try to mimic that curve and that shape. And this is a painting that I have still available as well. All right, back to the Texas painting. So I think this is the last painting from the Brady Ranch, and this painting is called A Bunch in Brady, which was kind of I think actually, hang on a second here. Yeah, this is the painting called A Bunch in Brady, a Brady Bunch, kind of, play off of the name of the show. And I liked this, composition because it pushed a lot of the shape contrast into the foreground of the landscape. I kind of went into Texas hoping that there would be some really nice clouds. I was kind of hoping to do some cloud painting, but we had some very clear days or overcast days most of the week. So I was left with these just sort of open and blank skies, and that forced me to think of composition more on the positive forms and solid shapes of the landscape. So I ended up going with this very high horizon composition, and then they had a couple of these telephone poles connecting, some of their their lines across their property. And I liked how different those poles were in comparison to the landscape. Partly for the value, because it's so dark, but also because of the shape, right? It's just this very thin vertical line against all of these very wispy and rough textures of the desert landscape. And this is pretty much what the property looked like everywhere. You know, it was just these big open fields with, you know, little groupings of trees that weren't very tall. They kind of blended in with the color of the landscape, and there really wasn't a lot of variety in terms of like shapes and values. Even in shadows, a lot of the shadows were really hard to see because of all of the brush. So you were kind of left with a pretty even, you know, blanket of subject matter with the landscape in Brady. But this was a really fun painting in terms of design and composition to make. I enjoyed making this one. Excuse me for one moment here while I blow my nose. My nose is getting all red from dealing with being sick today, so let's keep moving. I'm hoping today will be under an hour just because I'm sick, and there's really not that many paintings to talk about today. So, okay, moving on. We are back in San Angelo again with this painting. This was my other 8-inch by 9-inch painting, and this one is titled A Classic Corner because it was painted during this like public car show, this classic car show that the painters were invited to come and paint at the car show. It was kind of this like gallery community event hosted by a different gallery in San Angelo than where we were going to be showing our paintings. But I decided to go, and I like painting architecture and cars, and it's fun to be in the city. I mostly stayed in San Angelo during that main week of the event. You know, because it was fun to paint all of the buildings and the alleys and look for interesting geometric shapes and colors. So I ended up going with this corner view of the car that was at the end of the row. I don't know what kind of car this is. I wish I would have asked or taken a photo of like the nameplate on the car, but it had this really satisfying like emerald green finish, and I liked the color combinations of the yellowish orange road to this very cool purpley lavender kind of grayish shadow, and then the blue and the red off in the background. It just had a lot of these really bright, vivid colors in the space that I kind of amplified some of the color chroma in the painting, but by this point in the week, I think I was more interested in kind of interpreting the subject and allowing myself to take more liberties on some of the color properties. I've always sort of been open to the idea of reducing information or simplifying information, but typically I feel like color-wise, I don't know. I think this, and then I remember I've done some paintings where I start with a very limited, unnatural looking color palette and I make the whole painting that way. But here I'm trying to still stay close to or be true to the colors that I observe, but sort of amplify their intensity a little bit more. So the only issue with this painting I remember when I was making it was that there were a ton of mosquitoes in this little like parking ramp area where I was painting from, because the road sort of dipped down this foreground, like, you know, part of the like driveway, I guess. It dipped down at an angle, and then there was a loading dock kind of behind me to the right over here, down another 20 feet or so. And the building behind me where I was standing cast this really big shadow, which is why I wanted to paint here. But because I was in the shadow, it was a lot cooler, and it was kind of damp because it was kind of raining on and off throughout the week in Texas during the event, which was another sort of challenge with doing multiple session paintings. So this was a one session painting in the late afternoon, early evening, I think on like the Tuesday or Wednesday of the week, middle of the week. But because I was in that shadow, there were these mosquitoes just swarming my legs and my arms, and it was just really distracting while I was trying to paint. But there was a woman, I don't remember her name, that was walking by, and she saw me painting and came over, and we started talking, and I was like, I'm having a good time. I didn't expect all these mosquitoes in Texas, and she's like, oh, I have mosquito spray at home. I'll go grab it and come back. And I said, don't worry about it. And she's like, well, I have to go home anyway. If I can find it, I'll come back. I said, okay. So she gets in her car. I start painting again. And as she's driving away, she stops and slows down and rolls her window down. She says, it was in my car. I have it right now. And she gave it to me. And then she took off. And she said that she was going to be back at the show, but I don't remember if I used it right away and gave it back, or if she just let me keep it. I can't remember now what happened, but very nice woman. You meet such nice people at these events. All right, this is the other 5x7-inch linen panel painting that I made that didn't have a frame. So this was one that I had gotten framed up by JFM. Actually, I'm remembering there were 3 paintings like that. So there's another Nocturne that's 5x7 inches as well. And this is the downtown San Angelo, one of the main streets in San Angelo. I painted this, I think after I'd gotten dinner one night. I just sort of stuck around and wanted to see if there were some cool Nocturne spots. And I found this, sidewalk view. I really liked the hopperish kind of feel of these lights. It gives us this really clear, dramatic focal area in the foreground. And I liked the dark contrast of the street lamp sort of base down on the sidewalk here. And then what was really fun was trying to convey some of the neon signs or the street lights, down the street, way off in the distance, the warmth of those lights against the dark, low-key, cool color palette of the rest of the painting. I've had a couple people comment that this painting reminds them of UFOs because of the street lights, that they kind of are just floating. And I really like that people think that too, because I also felt that way when I was making it. Like, the value of the arm of the lamp kind of blended in with the sky. Like, it almost looked like it just disappeared against the night sky. So that was something that I'm really glad I just, because I remember thinking, like, should I paint in a dark line there, or even like a little light reflected line, or should I just kind of let it float? And I debated for a while on either option. And the thing I like about omitting that detail in that line is that it allows people to see something else. And even when I was painting it, that was happening for me. I was like, it kind of looks like a UFO or just this otherworldly thing. And in this very small, kind of intimate painting, it was kind of fun to have an element like that was kind of mysterious. So this is a painting that I still have available, and I reframed it actually. And it's in a little float frame now that I'm going to finish up today, actually, once the live stream is over. Jane is saying that she also thought that, or was reminded of Hopper when she saw this painting pop up too. Yeah, it definitely has kind of a, just that sort of, not Nighthawks, but just that late evening. It feels like there should be a figure kind of like walking down the sidewalk, or a car parked with its lights. Like, the thing that I think that isn't very Hopperish about this painting per se is that there's no like symbol of man or of humankind or of a human and activity. And for me, I kind of prefer to take out the figure in a lot of my plein air work. There's something to me more satisfying about an open or more powerful about kind of an open, vacant space that we're looking at in the paintings. I'm going to keep going just because I can hear my voice getting more and more stuffy. So I'm going to try to wrap up here pretty soon. And then part of the event is this grouping of paintings that we exhibit that the show calls the mini pearls, and I forget why they're called mini pearls. I think there was like a woman that was from San Angelo. Her nickname was Mini Pearl. I think there was some sort of association to that. I can't remember exactly now how that connected, but we had to make 6-inch by 6-inch paintings and have them framed for sale in the Mini Pearl sale. And this was the one that I painted. This was the other painting, one of the other paintings that incorporated the Cactus Hotel. So the other one that I showed you with the red wall is on the other side of this hotel. So I'm on the other side of town over here. I was painting the hotel from a vantage point that was like way off in the distance over here. So it's kind of fun to also, orient myself around this landmark in the downtown area of San Angelo. And in this little mini pearl painting, there were a lot of little shifting shapes and colors and textures that I was trying to incorporate here. That was a lot of fun to work with. And we can see, the sky had this kind of greenish haziness to it this day that was really fun to try to capture. But again, not really any clouds in the sky. It was a pretty open sky. I think along the horizon we might have had a few small clouds, but nothing major that I could have incorporated in the painting. And kind of like the other painting of the hotel that I showed, I think what I was drawn to was this really stark contrast of light to shadow. And, that was something that I think after being on the ranch out in Brady and not having these really dramatic contrasts in light and shadow, I was really kind of hungry for that in the city when I was painting in San Angelo. But I still have this painting as well. This one is actually going to be in a show in Door County at the Miller Art Museum. Actually, the other one, both of the Cactus Hotel paintings that I've shown so far are going to be in this show opening in May up at the Miller Art Museum in Door County, or in Sturgeon Bay in Door County. So, yeah, I'm excited about that show. It's a plein air painting show with a few other plein air painters from Wisconsin, and then there's one artist from Illinois. And if you're curious about that show, if you live in Wisconsin and you want to come see the show, make sure you head to my homepage where I have all of my calendar of events with links where you can find more information on those shows. And then, like I said, it was raining on and off throughout the event, and they allowed us to paint indoors periodically if the weather was really bad. And there was one day in particular where it rained like the entire day. It was really stormy, really gray and cold, so they allowed us to go paint inside. A lot of the artists in the show painted in some of the shops downtown in San Angelo, and a couple of us went over to the railway museum, the sort of train museum, and I had never been in that building prior to that day, but I was really excited when I got there because it was obviously very comfortable. It was out of the elements, it was really open. There were a lot of different rooms with these little kind of like maquette, train model, setups that people had built as displays. And it reminded me of one of my favorite studio painters, Amy. Oh no, I'm going to forget her name now. Amy. I think it's Amy. I don't know. Now that I'm sick, my head's a little fuzzy today, but if I remember, I'll try to put her name down in the comments of the video on YouTube. So check back later if I don't remember during the live stream. Check back in the comments. But anyway, there's an artist I really like, and her work, she sets up these kind of like train model little village maquettes in her studio, and she'll paint them from observation. And they have this surreal, mysterious quality about them because, you can tell they're painted with some sort of like observational process, because everything has this uniform sense of description and light. Like you can tell it's not from a photo where things are kind of flattened and compressed, and the contrasts feel a little bit more subtle and nuanced and natural that you get with natural light or even just observational painting. And I like the narrative element to those paintings as well. I don't know if it's Cropper. I don't think that's right, but it's bugging me now. I can't remember her name. But anyway, so I saw all of these model little setups, and I was like, oh, that would be super fun to try to make a painting from observation like this. So I ended up, I spent like 10 or 15 minutes walking around until I saw a view that felt a bit more open than just like a car or a building within the model. I wanted something that had a few different stages of depth. And from this vantage point in one of those rooms, you could see the window behind the glass wall. And I liked that through the window we could see, some of the city of San Angelo and the tree lines, some of the buildings. I liked that the light coming from the window also gave us this really satisfying kind of frosty effect on the plexiglass, the plastic kind of wall that covered the model village here. And I spent probably like 5 hours on this painting. It was really kind of the whole middle part of the day. I was in the museum with 3 other artists, I think, were there. 4 actually, because Charlie Hunter was painting outside but underneath the sort of overhang of the museum, and then Shelby Keefe was there, Alex Eisenhopf was there, and there's one other artist, I can't remember his name now, who was painting downstairs. But it was cool. It kind of felt like we were in this like shared studio building for a day during the event, and that was probably my favorite part about making this painting, was just the environment of the other artists that were there. But in terms of the formal qualities of the painting, I liked the use of abstraction, simplification. The generalizing of information here was really satisfying. And I still have this painting available too. I think this is going to be going into another curated group show. Not so much plein air focused, but it's a painting that's going to be about space and depicting space. And it's going to be in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, at the University Gallery there this fall. So I'm just kind of saving this painting for that show in the fall. And I'll probably reframe it because I don't really love how it looks in the frame that I had made for it. In terms of size, let me see if I can find the size. So this painting is 14 inches tall by 17 inches wide. It's a pretty good sized painting. It was my second largest painting that I made during Plein Air Texas. But yeah, it was really fun. It was a cool concept. I liked that play on space. I liked that we had this big, vast, open space in the distance, but it's seen through a window, so it's sort of cropped and contained. But also, it's being, I guess, cropped off on the top, so we don't even get to see the full view of the window. But then we have the kind of synthetic world, the plastic world down at the bottom. So there's something kind of interesting about the duality or dichotomy or whatever, however you want to describe it, between those two spaces. And I really liked that it wasn't constructed. Like, I just sort of happened to find that, and to me it's more satisfying when that happens versus like, oh, I need to set up a view that has all of those things that I want. Now we have a couple of small paintings not made in Texas. This one actually isn't even a plein air painting, so technically this should not even be in this portfolio, but subject matter wise, it really fits a lot of the work I've been doing in plein air. This is a small 5-inch by 7-inch paper panel that I made, and it's painted with casein paint. And I like this painting because it has a very washy, loose, atmospheric quality about it. A lot of these shapes are really rough and gestural, but from a distance, we can kind of put these pieces together and see the side of a building at night with even like Christmas lights and just open doors and light emitting from inside of those interiors. I'm going to blow my nose again real quick. And we're back. So we're getting near the end of the portfolio, the stream today. Yeah, I really wish I was over this cold already by today, but sometimes this is the way that things play out. So there are a few paintings I'm showing now that are all like the 5x7 or 6x8 inch size, and these are made with casein paint on paper panels. And the last one I showed you was painted from a photo that I took when I was on a walk in Cedarberg with Megan back in the, I think like in the winter, so a couple months ago. This was painted initially in plein air, so this was done in the late fall of 2023. I started it on location, and then it very quickly was too dark to finish the painting, but I had snapped a photo right as I was about to clean up, and then I finished it at home from the photograph. But really it was just some of the small details that were from photograph. The rest of it is, most of it is painted from observation. And then now we're back again in Texas paintings. So this is a, I believe this was an 8-inch by 9-inch painting that was painted over by this auto junkyard area. And I remember when I first got to San Angelo, I was looking at the event page website, and what I really like about Plein Air Texas is that they give you this permanent page. Anyone can see it, actually, not just the artists. But there's a certain page on their website with suggested painting locations for artists that are there for the event. And one of the locations was this sort of like junkyard district area, very industrial portion outside of the city. And I immediately was like, I want to go see what this area is like. And one of the images that I had found on their website that later I learned was a couple years old. So I didn't find this when I went there. This junkyard, there was a picture of the corner of their lot, and apparently they used to stack their cars like 5 or 6 cars high, and it was just this like pile of old, broken down cars that were like placed in the corner of their lot, and it was right off this intersection of these roads. And when I saw the picture of that online, I thought, that is so cool. I really want to go find that and see if it's there and paint that. But when I went there, it was gone. Like they had already pulled the pile down. They had rearranged things. It was a lot more organized. So honestly, I was kind of disappointed because I liked that it seemed kind of haphazard and seemed a little bit chaotic visually. But anyway, this was a view of a van in one of those lots, just sort of parked among all of these other old rusty cars from like the 60s and the 50s and probably the 40s that are just sitting in this like tall grassy lot. And I liked the van mostly, so I really wanted to just focus on painting the van, mostly because it has this cool kind of retro vibe with this orange stripe down the middle. And I liked the palette of the van. These sort of tan, beige, yellowy, orange combinations were really satisfying to me. So it ended up being kind of a monochromatic painting with this really thin, washy foreground to contrast more of the flat, opaque shapes of color. So for me, it was a lot of fun to make the painting because it has all of these different like languages of paint. We have these really thin, washy sections, and then these more like solid, opaque, rendered areas of the painting where things feel a bit more solid and weighted visually. But between those two ends of that spectrum of paint handling, there is a lot of abstraction happening too, where I'm just sort of trying to go in and convey or suggest information that when you're there looking at the space, it's really complex and really complicated, but for the role that shape or that object was going to have in the painting, I wanted it to be a little bit more subdued. So for me, that was a lot of the enjoyment of the process in making this particular painting. And then compositionally, I thought it was just kind of cool that we had this like weird tow truck arm kind of, line that divided up, part of the top half of the painting. I liked how it cut against the horizontal lines of the van. And then there was a similar angle on this hood of a car behind the van. So there's this interesting like mirroring of triangles happening. There's a lot of small vertical lines to kind of break up all of the horizontals. And I titled this painting Stripes of Experience because, you know, you're looking at all these cars that are way past their prime, but at one point in time they were, you know, fun vehicles that people would cruise around in. And Jane is asking me how I got the grass texture in the foreground. I think I was just using a bristle brush that was either like a 1-inch brush or like a 2-inch like house chip kind of painting brush. And the rougher the texture of the brush, the better, I think, for stuff like this, because you end up with these like very organic kind of marks throughout the paint. And the careful thing is that you have to leave it how it is. You can't keep painting over it, because once that layer dries, if you try to paint over it, anything you're going to paint on top of that is going to seem really different. And I think a lot of people have this desire to want to paint every blade of grass or every plant that they see, and you can kind of get away with having something appear very complicated or complex by working really quickly in this loose gestural brushy way. So that would be my recommendation if you want to try this. And then again, like I said, I was working with very thin paint, so as long as you're okay with the paint being very thin and translucent, which for me that was fine. I liked the brightness of the orange and the kind of green that was in the foreground here. All right, oops, I accidentally skipped a painting here. This is the other painting that I made at that same location. So like I said, I kind of found the stacking of cars that I was looking for, but not anywhere near the amount or the height that I was expecting to find. So there was this one pile of 3 cars that I saw that was, thankfully, it was right by the fence, so I could just stand on the other side of their fence and paint this view. And with this painting and the last painting of the van, both of them, technically, they had a fence blocking the view, but I decided to just focus on painting the solid car on the other side of the fence and just totally omit the fences in the paintings. And honestly, I'm really glad that I did that, because I think it would have been too busy and distracting, and it's really not about the fence, it's about what's behind the fence. So anyway, it's a little bit misleading, because when you see the paintings you might think, oh, he's standing in their space on their property, but really I just, you know, took some creative liberties and took out the fences. But this was one of my favorite paintings that I made during the event, just for the subject matter. You know, it's got such a unique kind of character about it, and this was a 2-session painting, although I'll say that by the second session it really was just minor tweaking of shapes and colors that I was adding in. Most of the painting was pretty much done after the first session. So what I ended up titling this one was Pontiac Sandwich, and I thought that was a very clever title for it. The car in the middle is like a Pontiac Grand Prix or something, I guess. So it kind of was fitting that could be part of the title. And what I really liked about this painting was trying to capture the character and the shape of the vehicle. So when you look at a car, you're not really seeing a flat plane from the side of the car. You're still seeing this sort of rounded volume of the doors, of, you know, the sort of like the chassis of the car. And what's exciting about painting that is that you have to really look at the way that light is reflecting off of that surface. And what was cool about the fact that these were stacked on top of each other is that they were casting shadows on the car below them, each one. And it was fun to sort of observe the light and try to find those subtle shifts or those really dramatic shifts in contrast. And what was really bizarre about this, though, is that this car on the bottom was missing a wheel on the back tire. So the whole car kind of sat flat on the ground, and it gave it this really awkward connection to the landscape. But I kind of like that, because it feels a bit more unique and more dramatic. But I remember one of the artists from the show commented on that, and they said, I think you need more of a shadow under this car. And I was like, well, actually, there was no wheel. Like, it was flat on, like, that's how it looked. There was no shadow. It was flat on the ground. But anyway, it's kind of funny how that happens, because we look at a painting and we have this logical side of our minds trying to make sense or compare what we see to our own experiences, and a lot of times we're surprised by stuff like that. But anyway, this was a really fun painting to make. I still have this painting too. This painting is this is one that I think, yeah, this was one that I also just brought up to Door County. I'm trying to keep track of where paintings are going this year, because there's 2 or 3 kind of big shows that multiple paintings from last year's plein air events are going to, and I think this one is going to be in the Door County Miller Art Museum show. And this one is 9.5 by 11 inches, so it's a little bit bigger than the 8 by 9 inch paintings that I've been showing. But it was a very fun ratio to paint. Both of those were kind of new ratios that I was trying out, and I was partially inspired by Edgar Payne. I have this book on Edgar Payne that I bought last year. It's a really nice, thick coffee table book, and a lot of his paintings, as I was flipping through the book, have a ratio that's almost a square, but they're not a square. It's not a 1-to-1. They're like just off of a 1-to-1, but they're not like a 10 by 20, sort of 1 by 2 rectangle. Like, they're closer to squares, and I kind of wanted to try working with those frames when I was going to Texas. So when I built all of my canvases, I took some inspiration from Edgar Payne, and I remember I took some of his paintings that I really liked in the book, and I wrote down the dimensions of his painting, and most of them are like 30 inches by 28 inches, or 35 inches by 31 inches. So it's like they're close to a square, and they're big sizes. I didn't want to do a big painting like that, but I would divide down his dimensions to a much smaller, manageable size. So that's how I got to the like 9.5 by 11s and the 8 by 9 inch canvases. That was sort of the impetus for those ratios that I brought with me to Texas. This is the last painting from Texas. This is the painting that got the award. It got the second place award. So in Texas, it's like first place or best of show are kind of the same award. And then it goes to second, third, and then you have artist choice, and then there's a bunch of other category awards. So when they called my painting for second place, I was really, really happy and grateful and excited. And, you're always a little bit nervous at those events when it comes to the awards, because, you spend a lot of time thinking about your paintings and getting connected and attached to the work that you made. And this was the largest painting that I brought with me to Texas, or canvas that I brought with me to Texas. This is 22 inches tall by 26 inches wide, so it's a pretty good sized painting. And with the frame is like a 3-inch, almost a 3-inch wide, frame. So that adds like 6 inches to that. So, it's a pretty good sized painting, or maybe it's 5 inches to that. And what we're looking at is the parking lot space of a restaurant in San Angelo. The painting is titled 5 Painters in San Angelo, and some people have thought that the painting is called 5 Painters, but really it's 5 painters. Excuse me. It's really 5 painters in San Angelo, and all of the painters in the windows are self-portraits, so they're all me painting myself, my own reflection in these windows. It's an idea that I've done a couple times in plein air. It's one of my favorite kind of concepts to paint, because it's this very abstract fragmenting of reflected space when you look at a window, and sometimes you can even see into the space that the window is connecting you to. So I like the sort of compression of the two spaces on one plane and trying to copy that. But it's also this very direct and literal kind of time capsule for my life and where I'm at and where I'm standing and who I am at that time. And for me, it hits a lot of these really satisfying criteria for for painting self-portraits, and especially when I get to travel, it's even more enjoyable because it's also a way of documenting my physical, like geographical location in the world at that particular time. So for me, it's like this pretty intentional. It's a very intentional way of working, and I've had some artists sort of, talk about it like, oh, it's just sort of it's trendy, or it's different, it's out of the box, and that's why you're doing it. It's like, well, not really. I've painted a lot of self-portraits over the years, and when I realized that plein air painting could incorporate windows and reflective material that would show yourself looking at your reflection, this whole other world of plein air painting kind of opened up for me, and it became very exciting. And it like I said, it hits all of those other criteria conceptually, emotionally, that I'm looking for in the work I want to be making outside. So what I've tried now a couple times are these like multiple day, multiple moment self-portraits all on the same canvas. And for me, it really opens the door for more creativity, for more of a subjective kind of narrative element to happen in my paintings. I like that there's now this juxtaposition of disparate or different moments to come together into one space, and now there's like an interaction or a relationship that can be compared or built off of. So this was one of the first times that I really pushed the idea past like 3 self-portraits. So here I'm trying 5, and initially I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I just filled the entire canvas with these self-portraits, and I'm going to try that at some point here soon, just to see what it looks like. But this is the most filled out version of the idea that I've tried so far. And initially, this pink wall, the parking lot with the parking blocks, all of the yellow dividing lines, the blue sort of tape stripe on the right, all of that was painted in the first 2 sessions of the painting. And that's looking at the side of a Italian restaurant that has the hotel, the Cactus Hotel, once again, reflected in the window. And that's what drew me to that location, because this was like the second day of the week in San Angelo. It was kind of raining, really crappy weather that day. It wasn't thunderstorming, thankfully, but it was raining steadily enough all day that you had to really be thoughtful about how you were going to set up, where you were going to paint, how much time you had. The good thing about that, though, is that you have very consistent light throughout the day. As long as the clouds aren't too thick and heavy, you can kind of get away with painting 10 to 12 hours, not 10 to 12 hours, 4 or 5 hours in one session without having to worry about shadows really moving or the light really changing dramatically. So that was a pro about that day. But I really liked this pink salmon colored wall. And the yellow bricks. That's really what drew me to this spot once I had realized that the museum was reflected in the window. And this window on the building is it's got to be like 4 feet by 5 feet or 4 by 6 feet. It's a very big window that on the other side has this black kind of film, tint. So you can't really see into the restaurant. And I kind of liked that too, because it made my reflection a lot more crisp and clear. But they did have this little weird shape either in that vinyl, or it was like the open sign or something that was here that sort of shifted the value of the tinting on the window there. So that was pretty satisfying to try to convey that shift in the reflective quality in the window. And you can see, obviously, in the reflection, I have my umbrella. I've got some plastic draped off the back of my this big canvas that was already in the frame, because when I shipped everything to Texas, I had already pre-framed all of my blank canvases. They were all wired. They had their little felt pads on the back. They had the certificates of authenticity. taped already. Like everything was just ready to go. I just had to make the painting and then write the titles on the back. That was pretty much all I had to do. And because it was raining, I had to wrap the frame in plastic because my frames, the paint that I use, sometimes I've noticed if like drops of water get on the frame, that it'll reactivate the paint. And then if I wipe the water off, it'll wipe the paint off. And you end up with these like weird, sort of circles on the frame that I don't really want to have on the frame. So I really wrapped my painting in the frame with plastic, and you can see the blue painter's tape is what I used to sort of wrap it to the frame or to pieces of cardboard that were on the frame. And that's what we're seeing over here on the right side of the frame. And this is something I've never done before in plein air. That was really exciting, and for me it felt very new and different and just really inspiring, is to try to pull back my lens, almost like if you're making a movie and the actor looks right in the camera. It's sort of like breaking that fourth wall. As a painter, I feel like if I can show any of my setup, whether it's myself, whether it's like my palette, my easel, my painting, in the painting, it sort of feels like the same effect, like I'm breaking that wall. And that's what I was trying to do here. Is I decided because I have such a large view and a large painting, and the distance I wanted to pick from myself to this window where I was standing in the parking lot, it pulled the view back so far that I could fit the edge of my painting and my frame in the painting. So this blue stripe is tape that I used to tape plastic over my frame of this painting that we're looking at. And you can kind of see on the very bottom right corner, there's a little bit of the painting kind of like, repeated in this little sliver. So once I decided that I was going to do this, I started looking at this bottom corner of my painting, and I tried to mimic, okay, where is this part of my frame going to show up in the painting? I hope that makes sense. It's a lot of the same words over and over, like frame and painting and tape and blah, blah, blah. But I'm hoping it's obvious enough what I was doing here. But anyway, so after I finished this big window, then I was like, cool, I'm going to keep this like a ongoing log of self-portrait window paintings, and I'm just going to set this painting up in different locations, and I'll just paint more windows on this big open wall because I had all of this extra space. I thought, this will be perfect. I can just put in a bunch of different windows, and it kind of leaves the door open to discover new places. It's not like I already had envisioned windows that I wanted to paint. It kind of was like, well, now I can just keep this painting in my car, and when I see a window I like, I'll just pull over, I'll take everything out, I'll paint my self-portrait, and then I'll put it back in the car. So I kind of liked that very simple, playful, improvisational approach to building out the painting. And I think from here, excuse me, I'm going to blow my nose again real quick. And we're back. Man, I have quite the pile of Kleenex over out of frame here. I can tell that I really should probably stop the stream here pretty soon because, when you have a kind of a head cold and your hearing just is sort of, it sounds kind of plugged. That's how I feel today. So I have no idea how this is sounding. And when I listen to this recording in a few days, I'll probably hate it because I never like the sound of my own voice, let alone when I'm sick. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap up here pretty quickly. So the second reflection was this door, and I liked the door because it had this kind of like the first window. It had some sort of plastic film. That must be a popular thing in Texas because a bunch of these windows had like this sort of film. And maybe it's for in the summer when it gets really hot, it helps keep out some of the heat. That's my guess. But this door had this like gold, really reflective film on it, and I loved how that created this really bold, yellowish, intense reflection, and I wanted to try to see if I could figure out a way to paint that and match those colors. And what's exciting about that is a lot of times when you want to paint something that's very bright and very saturated or reflective, like silver and gold and brass and copper and that kind of stuff, a lot of times it's not like you need to have paint that is reflective. It's really about the color relationships. And what I realized when I was painting my reflection in this doorway was that the more muted and kind of greenish my reflection was here, the more vivid and saturated and reflective it made the gold area appear to be. So that was my takeaway from painting the door here. And then I think my third addition was, it might have been this one, I think. This was also, all of these were painted pretty much in the downtown San Angelo area. But I think this was the third one. This was the fourth one. And this might have been, for sure this was the last one. I know that. These two I can't remember which came first. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to paint. I liked also thinking about placing the windows, compositionally in their own place. What I like about this format of the like multi self-portrait, multi-window kind of concept or theme is that it does feel, it kind of feels personal for me. It does feel like it's this realm of painting that is part of this ongoing storytelling over multiple years now. Like it doesn't, I'm not really someone who's like, oh, artists should find their trademark thing and like, they should, no one else should be allowed to do that thing. And if you're doing it, you're copying that person. Like I've never really been that, annoyed or strong-headed about that kind of way of thinking, because this isn't my idea, really. A lot of artists have painted self-portraits. I think for me, what's been unique is this sort of multiple reflection idea, that there's more than one window in the painting, and it's really about the sense of time and the stacking of time, and how a narrative is developing over time. Which reminds me that when the painting received an award, I remember that I'm reading the comments. So Jane is saying, I was just wondering how you felt about that. I'm assuming you're talking about the like, having your own idea, like trademark stuff. Is that what you're talking about, Jane? Let me know in the comments real quick. But I was just going to say that there's a video I have on my YouTube channel for those of you who haven't seen this. It was like sort of a recap video about my time in Texas. So if you like these paintings or you want to learn more about these paintings, go check out that video. During the video, there's a portion of audio that I included from the judge of the event, the awards judge named Michael Grauer, and he was very generous during a presentation he gave on the second day of the reception, and he spent a lot of time talking about his choices and what he liked about the paintings, why those paintings stood out to him. And when he got to this painting and the second place award, he said some really, really nice things about the painting and some of my ideas and my approach to painting outside. And I'm really happy that I recorded it, because I've been in other shows before, and sometimes the judges, they only share a couple comments about the decision. Sometimes they don't share any comments. Sometimes they go on for multiple minutes to talk about their decisions. And this was the first time I had remembered to like record what they were about to say, and I'm really glad that I did. So if you'd like to hear that, check that out in that video as well. So Jane is saying that, yeah, she was curious about how I felt about other people using different ideas. And I don't know, I think it's tricky. Like there's definitely times where it feels like maybe, if someone's really successful, I think it's more obvious that maybe other people are kind of mimicking their approach or copying their approach, hoping to be as successful or hoping to find a similar sense of success. And this is true for a lot of different art forms. We see it a lot in music. We see this a lot in like filmmaking and movies or shows. I'm not a huge reader, but I'm sure this happens a lot in books as well. And there's just something kind of like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, I don't know, it's sort of impossible, or it's going to happen. It's a guarantee that that's going to happen in the art world, that people are going to see something that's working, they're going to want to try it themselves. And I think there's nothing wrong with finding influence from other artists and being inspired by other artists, or being inspired to try a process or a formal element, whether it's color, whether it's compositions, whether it's drawing, whether it's, value, themes, that kind of stuff. I think it's okay to be inspired by people, but I think the goal should be to always push it past what someone has done, and if it doesn't feel like anyone is really pushing beyond what they got from someone else, I think that's where it's a bit more dangerous, and it's just kind of, I think it's sort of a disservice to the world of artists when people think that way, or they take that approach where it's just about, oh, it's really working for so-and-so, I just have to incorporate that in my work and then I'll be successful too, and I've seen it in different circles of art making and studying art, whether I've been a student, whether I've been a teacher, whether I've been in these plein air events, whether it's studio work and gallery shows. It's kind of, it's undeniable that you're going to come across that in the art world. But I think the tricky thing, it's like any part of life when we think about relationships of people and like group dynamics, is that we can't control anyone else. We can only control ourselves and our philosophies and our approach. And, sometimes I'll vent about stuff like this to my partner or friends or family. And, I'm fortunate to be surrounded by very, intelligent people who are very helpful and good at reminding me, like, hey, just remember, like, you can only control how you feel about that, and what I've learned over the years when I felt frustrated by some of this kind of stuff too, is that all I can do is be an example of someone who is trying to do the thing that I believe in, which is that you should, sponge up the things you like, but then, let it go through yourself as a unique individual, and then have it something new kind of come out, new in the way that it's not just a one-to-one copy of what someone else has done, and I think that if you feel like you're copying someone else's work, you really have to be an advocate for that belief system and, make the right decisions and not, push that into the world like, hey, this is my work, this is my idea, and that's why when I do live streams or if I'm posting about my work online, like I try to be pretty forward and transparent about my influences, because I never want someone to come up and say, this is just like so-and-so, are you just copying so-and-so? And because that happens a lot, especially in academic settings, where it's like everyone's trying to categorize things all the time, and it's really easy to be like, this reminds me of so-and-so, who reminds me of so-and-so, and trace those breadcrumbs back. So that's been my solution so far. It's like, just be an example of somebody who takes it, like, is super inspired by a lot of different people, but is reminding himself that it's really about finding something else, finding something that feels fresh and feels unique and feels new to you. And hopefully it feels like that to other people. We can't control anyone else's interpretation of our work, so you have to just focus on your own interpretations. But when I look at this painting, it feels like my painting, and for me, that's the best feeling, is that it's like, wow, this feels like I found something to me that feels special. It feels unique. It feels personal. It feels, challenging. It felt exciting to make. And it's really, for me, it's really interesting to look at now that it's done, and I'm proud of all of those things in this painting. So, yeah, that's why earlier I kind of mentioned I have some other ideas that I still want to try and sort of incorporate. But as I was saying it, part of me is like, is it bad to sort of share ideas of things I want to do before I do them? I don't know. I think people are going to do what they want to do, and we have to just sort of focus on our own lane sometimes. But Yeah, that's part of the craziness of being an artist nowadays, and with technology and media and social media and people following other people. And I see that a lot on social media, where it's like if one artist is really blowing up, I start to see like remnants of what they've done or what they're doing in other people's work start to kind of bubble up. And I think that's kind of just natural, of being human, that we're influenced by each other and we're inspired. And people say like mimicry is the greatest form of flattery, and I think you have to believe that, otherwise you're going to go crazy. And even me saying it is good to hear myself say some of that stuff, as a reminder. Like, if somebody ever copied something that I did, like there's something really, kind of flattering about that. And you have to be, you kind of have to be open to like, letting ideas germinate across different people. That's part of being an artist, is sharing what you're doing with the world. And the world then gets to decide where that goes. That's part of it. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the San Angelo paintings. There's one last painting here that I'll talk about today, because this was the last painting that I made in 2023. And then I will end the stream now that we're almost at an hour and a half. This was a painting that I made here in Grafton, Wisconsin, where I live, and it's a painting close to like our neighborhood. This is like a 7 or 6 session painting. It's one that I spent a lot of time on in the winter. I made this mostly in December, believe it or not. We didn't really get a lot of snow at the end of the year, so it worked out that I could continue to work on this painting. And I kept thinking that we were going to see some snow during the process of making this painting, so it really motivated me to keep getting out when it was still clear like this, to finish the painting. And it's a 22-inch painting, square. It's a painting I really, really like. It's compositionally a very satisfying painting for me. I really love the cutouts of space around the tree and the building, and all of the big dramatic color relationships and the shapes that are in this painting. There's a lot of variety. So for me, it feels like one of my strongest plein air paintings because of those elements and those reasons. I feel like I was able to get to a point where I felt like I was capturing some of the character of this pocket of our neighborhood. It's inspired me to want to do a lot more paintings like this, and really highlight the everyday space of the suburban kind of environment. And there's something about it that is sort of pulling me, conceptually to it. I think there's something about that feeling of life, of activity, of movement, like even garbage cans and vehicles, and it feels like there's stuff happening here, or the manicured lawn. Like there's something about that. It's like the evidence of the person, as opposed to painting out in the woods where there's no structures, there's no cars, it just feels like nature. Nature is doing its thing. Here it's like, this is the human, the human space. This is where life happens. This is where growth happens, and heartbreak happens, and love happens. And I like that it has that sense of activity in this type of space. And because it's so dense with shapes and information, this is like our whole neighborhood looks like this. So there's just endless opportunities for paintings that are going to incorporate cropping and this sort of obscuring of information by blocking. Depending on where I'm standing, certain things get blocked out, and there's a lot of creativity that can happen with that. So I'm really excited about that potential. So it'd be fun to do a pretty good size, body of work focused just on some local spots here around Grafton or Cedarberg. I thought there was something else I was going to say with this painting. I mean, this is another recent painting, and I have recorded a lot of in-progress clips of this painting on YouTube. So if you want to see some of the making of the painting, you can find that over on my channel as well. And this is a painting that I just finished framing for that Sturgeon Bay Door County show opening in May. So if you're, if you're in the Door County, Sturgeon Bay area, please, keep our exhibition on your calendar. There's 4 other artists. I think it's myself, Shelby Keefe, Brian Sindler, Stephanie Lord, And, oh no, now am I going to blank on who else is there? Is that everybody? I'm wondering if that's the whole group. If there's another artist, I feel really bad right now that I can't remember who it is, but maybe it is only 4 of us in the show. It might be. Oh, and Mark Anderson. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot about Mark Anderson. Yeah, so there's 5 of us. So it's Mark Anderson, myself, Brian Sindler, Stephanie Lord, and Shelby Keefe. And on June 6th, here's the first announcement. There is going to be a public artist panel discussion at the museum. I think it's going to be moderated by the new director from the Peninsula School of Art, Adam, or he will be on the panel as well. I don't know if he's moderating it or if he's just a guest lecturer with us, but I'm really excited. It's kind of like these live streams. It's an opportunity to talk about some of the process behind my paintings, to talk about some of the conceptual ideas, to talk about some of the interactions I got to have with people during the making of the paintings, how I grew as an artist and as a person through making the work. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope you can make it to that part of our exhibition as well. Okay, I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you for those of you who tuned in, especially Jane, for interacting with the chat again today. It's really nice to have people who are excited about these talks and who are interested in having a discussion and asking questions. So thank you, Jane. She's asking actually right now, is the discussion going to be live streamed? The one in Door County, I don't know if they're going to have it live streamed. I can ask. I'm sure if I ask and if there's enough interest, we can definitely probably find a way to make that happen. I think that would be really nice to preserve the discussion. So I'll make sure to ask as we get closer to that event on June 6th. So yeah, hopefully it will be. That would be really nice. But anyway, thank you again, everyone who tuned in, and thank you to those of you who are watching these as recordings on my channel or from my website. I hope that they are informative and inspiring. If you're an artist especially, I hope that you can gain some inspiration from these videos. Thank you again, Jane, for tuning in. Thanks for the nice comment there at the end. I really appreciate it. I think by Wednesday I should be back to normal. I was camping. I said some of this at the very start of the stream. I don't know if you were there or if other people caught this, but I was camping actually in Door County this last weekend at Newport Beach State Park. And I was feeling a little bit under the weather. I just had kind of an earache and kind of a runny nose all weekend, but my throat was fine. Stuffy, congestion wise, I felt okay. And then last night at 4 a.m. I woke up and I couldn't even swallow. It hurt so bad. So I was like, oh man, I have to do this live stream today. I hope I can just talk. And it really wasn't that bad. So I hope that the recording isn't terrible to listen to. But anyway, I should be good to go by later this week. So thank you everyone for watching. Again, my name is Hector Acuna. If you want to learn more about my work, visit acunaarts.com. It's written there right underneath my video. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Hector Acuna _studio. And then if you want to follow my plein air account, I have another account called Hector Acuna _plein air. So follow one or both if you want to stay in touch with my work on Instagram. Okay, I think that's it. I hope everyone enjoys the eclipse if you're in a place where you can enjoy it, and stay safe and stay healthy. If you're also feeling under the weather today, make sure you're getting your vitamin D and your good vitamins in this time of year. So if you're an artist, happy painting, and thanks for tuning in. Okay, goodbye everyone. Have a wonderful day. I will see you in the next live stream, which is probably going to be this week. I'm going to just give myself the week and not rush, the live streams. I think I'll probably plan to do something on Friday this week. So Friday morning, probably. Either Thursday or Friday. We'll see. So I'll make sure to post an update about that on my YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for an announcement for the next live stream. Okay, thanks for watching.